Hey, what's up, guys? This is Alex Van Houten with Defining Dad Bod, aka Coach Al. Hope you guys are doing super well. I am starting a new series called Tip Tuesday, and Tip Tuesday will be here live on Facebook. As you can imagine, as a coach working online with people both nationally and also in a community like this, I get a lot of questions regularly through the podcast, through the Facebook group, through the page and stuff. And, I've been answering them individually via Messenger and comments and stuff. And what I find is many people have a lot of the same questions. So I can only produce about one podcast episode a week. And I can also rapid fire answer questions at least once a week in this format. So this is what we're up to. I've got 3 questions I want to address for you guys today, all sent by people either via social media or the podcast, or even some client questions. So the first question I'm going to cover is what do I do, or what's my first step if I want to become a coach for my career? So I can talk a little bit about that. I've worked with a lot of trainers in my time as a coach in the last 13 years, and I've learned a lot through the School of Hard Knocks. So we'll talk about that too. My the next question, I had somebody ask specifically about the hormone pyramid. They were interested in why I ask people to eliminate soy during the testosterone phase. So I'll answer that. And then last but not least, I've had 3 different people join the inner circle, and they were interested in some variation of the question, how do I lose fat and gain muscle? What's the best way to do that at the same time? So I'll cover that question, and I'll do it while walking, because walk breaks are good for you, and I hope you take walk breaks as well. So first question, if you want to become a career coach, what are your first steps? I always tell people the first thing that's important if you're interested in becoming a personal trainer, the first thing that's important is to know what atmosphere and or environment you want to practice your training. So you could be like a boot camp coach for some small fitness facility in your area, and the requirements to do that are very different from, let's say, starting your own business and training people out of their homes. So if that's something that's interesting to you, the first thing that you need to do if you're interested in becoming a personal trainer or becoming a coach is to identify where it is you'd like to practice. So for my part, I started training individuals at the Vanderbilt Recreation Center when I was going to school there. And I got my certification through the International Sports Science Association. I was interested in getting a start on the education there so that I could be credentialed to help people, but also it was just a really good foundational certification. You couldn't beat the price. You were doing online testing and whatnot. You didn't have to go anywhere special to complete your certification. So it was a really good start. And then as my career evolved, I worked for a large corporation, Lifetime Fitness. They required the National Academy of Sports Medicine certification. So I went through them. I really enjoyed their certification curriculum. They have a great model, the OPT model, which helps you to really integrate clients no matter where they're starting in their fitness. So that was powerful. And now I work for myself. And as an individual working in this space, there are no requirements as far as your certification goes, except that you are able to shore up your education gaps given the demographics that you're working with. So if you identify who you'd like to help and how you'd like to help them, then that's really the first step to moving in that direction. So thanks for that question. I appreciate that. Are you going to be working for yourself? Are you going to be doing things on the side? Or are you going to be training for a large corporation? Find out what the education requirements are for there. And then the last thing I would say is, as you start your education, it never hurts to put out feelers to your community to see who wouldn't mind you practicing on them. And you're like, well, you're not a certified trainer yet. Why should you help me? Well, it's free. If you tell somebody, hey, I'm working on my certification, I'd like to design a program for you since you seem to have some goals. Would you be willing to let me practice on you? Most people would be like, yeah, I would love for free for somebody to come help me. And if that sounds horribly unqualified to you, take this into account. They did a study where where they had people work out, and they did the same workout, okay? And one group of people did the workout all by themselves in a room, and another group of people did a workout where they had somebody sitting there watching them. I know it sounds really creepy, but what they found is that the people who had somebody sitting there watching them, did somewhere in the neighborhood of 20 to 30% more repetitions, took less rest, and were more likely to push themselves as far as weight intensity was concerned. Every young man has experienced this when they go to the gym to work out and there's a cute girl across the gym. Like you get the best workout of your life when you think some cute girl's probably watching you work out. And that's not a creeper thing. That's psychology. We tend to perform better when we know somebody's watching us. So anyway, that being said, if you're interested in that sort of thing, you don't even need education to help somebody do a better job in their own workouts. So thanks for that question. That was a great question. Good luck in your journey to become a fitness professional. If you're just joining us, I'm starting a new series called Tip Tuesday. I get so many questions through the podcast and through social media that I figured if I answered them live, maybe it would help other people who have the same questions. So just answered about first steps to becoming a fitness professional, if that's what you're interested in. Now, the next question comes specifically from somebody who is interested in the hormone pyramid. They asked me, why do I have people cut out soy in phase 3 of the hormone pyramid? So if you're unfamiliar with the hormone pyramid, I have a series on the Defining Dad Bod show called Overcoming Obesity. And the hormone pyramid is based on the idea that a couple different ideas. One, it's very possible that for most people, counting calories is a very ineffective way for them to achieve body composition results. For a number of reasons, I have entire podcast episodes about it if you're interested in that sort of thing. They're called the Beyond Calorie series. But I hate to tell people that without an alternative. And so in my practice in the last 13 years, I've created what I call the hormone pyramid. And the hormone pyramid is a systematic way to address nutrition and lifestyle change in a way that positively affects your hormones. And it's based in a hierarchy, meaning that I work hard to prioritize for my clients what changes will yield the best results with the least amount of effort on your part. And let's say I gave you a meal plan. I don't generally do meal plans, but I do provide meal plans in virtual coaching, because if you don't, people ask for them. But let's say I gave you a meal plan. I said, hey, if you eat this, everything is going to be fine. And you go, okay, well, I gave you a meal plan, but what changes does that require? That's grocery shopping, that's food prep, that's whether or not your individual tastes are the same as my meal plan. That's whether or not you have the convenience to eat what it is I'd like you to eat for breakfast or whatever. So meal plans generally don't work well for people, even though everybody would like one. So we provide that, and that's all well and good. But really, where change happens for body composition and where change happens that's consistent and manageable, it happens in incremental ways, where we focus on the things that are going to make the biggest difference with the least amount of effort on your part. And then we do that in a way that affects all of the hormones upstream. So we deal with insulin in phase 1, because insulin is the primary driver of body composition change. If you have too much insulin, you pack on fat like it's going out of style. And if you aren't insulin sensitive enough, it's going to be really hard not to stress your body out internally through inflammation. So we address insulin in the first phase. Then we address cortisol. Cortisol is the stress hormone in the body. And cortisol is important because if your cortisol system's not optimized, then what happens to you is you sleep poorly, you recover poorly from exercise, you steal a lot of the resources from the rest of your hormonal systems so that you don't adapt appropriately. And that's a pretty big deal. You know, I meet people who are like, yeah, I started exercising, I got some results for a little while, and then I got injured, or you know, I just couldn't make it work for me, or I got depressed or something like that. And that happens to a lot of people. You only have so much of your own cup that you can pour stress into. And exercise and nutrition both fall into that category. If you add stress to a stress system in a less intelligent than possible way, what happens is you end up messing up your cortisol system. So we address that in phase 2. And then we go phase 3, which is testosterone, and then phase 4, which is your thyroid hormone. And we work to address each of these hormonal systems up the pyramid. It works really well for our clients. We we see a lot of really positive results. And then the big thing for me that I care about is you don't get injured, it's sustainable, and the change is long term. Next year, you're not working on the same goals as you are now. So anyway, all that being said, somebody had a question about phase 3 of the hormone pyramid, which is testosterone. And the testosterone phase of the hormone pyramid is interesting because the lifestyle and the lifestyle and nutrition goals around the hormone pyramid in testosterone have to do with creating the environment for your body to elevate testosterone in a natural way. And that's important because, especially for men, not that it's not important for women at all, we could talk about that if you guys care to, but especially for men, the positive adaptations from exercise, especially muscle growth, come from elevated testosterone levels. And many men, they'll go get their testosterone levels checked, and they're like, oh, your testosterone level's low. And they're like, here's this hormone replacement therapy for you. Most of the time, they're not talking about sleep. That's probably the number one reason for low testosterone, is most men aren't sleeping long enough. They're not recovering well from their day, and their sleep quality is very low. I talk to guys all the time who are like, yeah, I run just fine off of 4 or 5 hours of sleep. I'm like, yeah, but how much caffeine do you have to consume in a day in order to be able to do that? Did you know that every little gram of cortisol you create is a gram of testosterone that you're probably not able to create because of the way the hormones work together? I think the easy way to put this, evolutionarily speaking, is if you're running from a tiger, your body says, well, we don't need to worry about making babies right now. Cortisol is prioritized over testosterone. Anyway, so that being said, in the testosterone phase, I ask people to cut out soy and hydrogenated oils specifically. Why is that? Well, in some cases, not all cases, I don't want you to hear that soy is bad and soy is going to lower your testosterone, but in some cases, it seems that there are some people that respond negatively to soy consumption as a xenoestrogen, meaning that, especially in men, if you're trying really hard to elevate your testosterone naturally, the worst thing you can do is add a whole bunch of xenoestrogens to the system. And the soy that people are generally consuming is not like, oh, I got my little edamame beans and I'm enjoying those. It's added soy to their food product, processed food product usually, that has very little nutrient quality to begin with. Soy is actually a pretty great food in its natural and whole form, but food companies recently have noticed that if they put protein in big giant letters on the front of anything, and they have a few elevated protein grams, then people will buy it. You know, like protein bars, for instance. Go ahead and flip it over, look at the ingredients list. They say soy, and there's a bunch of different sources of soy, but none of it's your nice green whole food edamame with antioxidants and possibly anti-carcinogenic properties. It's just cheap protein. They've added cheap protein to be able to sell you on the fact that you've got protein in this thing. And so I ask guys to cut out soy specifically in the testosterone phase, because if that's something they're consuming regularly to try to get enough protein, then it's likely being a negative add to the hormone system. So thanks for joining me, guys. We're walking through Tip Tuesday, a new series I'm doing here on Defining Dad Bod on Tuesday. You guys get to join me for a walk, and I'll talk through some of the questions that people have submitted. So we talked about where to start as a coach. We've talked about why we eliminate soy from the phase 3 of the hormone pyramid, that is testosterone. And I've got a follow-up question here. Brian says, so if my testosterone's low, it's 148. Thanks for sharing that with us, by the way. That's pretty personal. Doctors have me on some injections. With it being so low, will that keep me from building muscle and losing weight? Yeah, there's a lot of elements to muscle growth and fat loss, and testosterone in males is definitely one of them. Low testosterone will lead to visceral fat gain, that's fat accumulating around the midsection. It'll lead to muscle wasting, which is a decrease in the total size of your muscle fibers. And it could also promote some of the things that lead to lack of activity, like depression. In males especially, testosterone mitigates depression and is linked to serotonin levels. So if your testosterone's low, it's also possible that your serotonin's low, which which doesn't really motivate you to go do things. You know, when you're depressed, you're not like, oh yeah, I love this day, I'm going to get up and go for a run, or yeah, I love lifting weights, let's go do that. And I talk about that with regard to redefining dad bod, the biological basis for dad bod. Serotonin drops when testosterone drops, and a lot of new dads experience, there was a recent study done, well, I say recent, it was probably 2011, I want to say, on 10,000 fathers in the Philippines, and they measured testosterone levels after newborn babies, and it turns out that your testosterone level drops about drops to one third of your pre-baby testosterone right after a baby's born. And I have a couple shows on this if you're interested in that. Check out the episode called It's Time to Redefine What We Mean by Dad Bod. I put that out for Father's Day recently. But talking you through how testosterone changes as young babies grow, it generally doesn't bounce back to normal pre-baby levels until your youngest child is 4, which is pretty powerful. So anyway, that being said, yeah, your testosterone will certainly affect your fat loss and your muscle gain. My primary quip against hormone replacement therapy is it's like a Band-Aid over a bullet hole if there are nutrition and lifestyle changes that should be made but aren't being made to change the testosterone. So if you're getting injections for your testosterone, but you're still sleeping like garbage, you're not weight training appropriately, you're eating too much sugar, you're not hydrating well, your activity is very low in a day because you're sedentary, blah, blah, blah. All that's going to happen is you're going to have to add more to your testosterone injections over time, because men's testosterone drops anyway as you get older. The best we can do is help it not drop so deeply. And if your lifestyle and your nutrition's working against you, then you're never going to get off of those injections, man. You're going to be having to introduce exogenous testosterone to your body on the regular, and no matter what anybody tells you, we don't know what that does to you over the long term. We have no idea what adding testosterone over the long term does to you from an exogenous source. And I wish more people were talking about it, but there's millions of dollars in the hormone replacement therapy market, and so maybe even billions. So they're not talking about it. They're just saying, oh, you have low testosterone, let's give you these injections and see how things go. They should be coaching your sugar, they should be coaching your sleep, they should be coaching your exercise, they should be coaching your lifestyle and activity with regard to depression and whatnot, and helping you, if anything, to use that testosterone replacement therapy for the short term in order to make long-term changes with the motivation and results that you get from the short term. But I'm not a doctor. So none of this is supposed to be medical advice. I appreciate that thought, Brian. Good luck on your journey there, brother. So last question number 3. People have asked, well, actually I've had several different iterations of this question over the last week, and it's so complicated. So I'm going to try not to be long-winded. Hang with me. That's not my strong suit. Ask my wife. So the question is, what's the best way to gain muscle and lose fat at the same time? And I assumed that a part of that question is, how do I keep it that way? Because very few of the people who reach out to me are interested in, oh, it's raining. That's good. Here's a good way to lose fat. Walk really fast in the rain. I don't really mean that. I'm joking. So that's a good question, and it's an important question. To make it relatively simple, we're just about to publish our 100th episode of Defining Dad Bod, and just about every single person's goal that I've ever worked with has some sort of body composition element. It's, how do I decrease my body fat and increase my muscle in a desirable way that doesn't go away in a month? You know, like, I'm not training for a physique competition. It's not like I need to lose fat and gain muscle so that when you take a picture of me on stage, I got that one really good posing picture, but I really don't care how I look the rest of the year. So great question, pretty complicated in the sense that I believe it revolves around 2 really important factors. First of all, getting a very clear picture of how long of a time scale this goal is going to take. I work in an industry where everybody wants like a 6-week program to your perfect body. and they're willing to do just about anything, take just about any supplement to make that happen. And I'm here to tell you that that doesn't work. Anything you do in 6 weeks is not going to last you years. Okay? It's not going to last you years. I'm not sure how long it took for you to have more muscle or have less muscle than you'd like, or gain more fat than you'd like, or whatever. It takes time to shift your body's homeostasis to be less fatty and more muscular. That's hardcore coaching truth. In fact, for most people, I say, if you're not willing to put at least 4 months into this, then don't even try. Like, not to demotivate somebody. That's not my intent at all, but I'm just being real with you. If you're not willing to put at least 4 months into losing some fat and gaining some muscle, then it's not a goal, it's a pipe dream. Okay? That's important. So that being said, how do you gain muscle and lose fat? It's actually about periodization. That's a really important piece of the whole puzzle. And that is, you have to teach your body how to burn fat as a fuel source. You do that by mitigating insulin and cortisol's effects on the body. So you teach your body how to stop using carbohydrates and relying so much on carbohydrates. If you're interested in Googling more about this, that's called metabolic flexibility. You need to train and eat and sleep in a way that promotes metabolic flexibility. And that phase is catabolic. That means you're breaking down tissues in order to use them for energy. And teaching the body to burn fat as a fuel source, using those calories in a positive way rather than storing them, that sort of thing, that is a different phase of training, a catabolic phase of training, than gaining muscle, which is an anabolic phase of training. Gaining muscle, an anabolic phase of training, looks more like training type 2 muscle fibers. That's strength, that's increased cross-sectional area of the muscle tissue. That's utilizing the metabolic flexibility that you trained in order to create musculoskeletal changes. So in layman's terms, if you want to gain fat and lose muscle, lengthen, rewind. Nobody wants to gain fat and lose muscle. Try again. If you want to gain muscle and lose fat, you need to lengthen your time frame on your goal. It's not a 6-week thing. It's not an 8-week thing. It's at least a 4-month thing. And then you have to periodize your nutrition and your exercise so that you can enter a catabolic state without losing too much muscle. You decrease fat and get really good at using fat as a fuel source. And then you increase musculature that elevates your resting metabolic rate, increasing musculature, growing muscle. And then with your increased metabolism and your ability to burn fat as a fuel source, you'll be a leaner, more muscular version of yourself by the end of those 16 weeks. I do that pretty regularly with virtual coaching. So if everything I just said is gobbledygook to you, then perhaps you might be a good candidate for virtual coaching. That's what I do when working with people, is I arrange their nutrition, lifestyle, and exercise changes in order to get them results in the next 16 weeks. Some people's goals are longer than 16 weeks. Like, I have a guy I'm working with who's lost about 65 pounds in the last year. And when we say we lost 65 pounds, we've also gained 13 pounds of muscle. So in total, he's probably lost somewhere in the realm of 80 pounds of fat. It's a pretty big deal on his front, while gaining some muscle at the same time. But those things didn't happen concurrently. He didn't gain muscle and lose fat all at the same time over the span of a year. We had periods of time where we were conditioning, and then we had periods of time where we were growing muscle, and then we had periods of time where we were cutting fat, and in that way, we were able to do so in a way that's sustainable. Now he can go have a piece of carrot cake every week with, his significant other, and it doesn't collect on his love handles as fat. Why? He's got a new homeostasis. We did it with the long term in mind. His metabolic rates increased. His muscles can handle those carbohydrates. It's a powerful way to change. So the short answer to the question, how do you gain muscle and lose fat in the most effective way? It's to do it in a periodized way. Train to get good at burning fat as a fuel source, grow some muscle, then cash in on the increased metabolic output, take a rest period, and do it again. And that happens in about 16, 20-week phases, if you're interested in that sort of thing. The the key word there, if you want to Google it, is called a macro cycle. Periodization, macro cycle. So, guys, thank you so much for your questions. Thanks for joining me here live. If you have questions that you'd like me to handle for Tip Tuesday, and maybe we won't get rained out next week, so I can walk it through, go ahead and drop them here, or better yet, go join the Defining Dad Bod Inner Circle, and I ask you in the closed group questions to get into the group. I ask you, what is the most important question you'd like answered in this group? And if you drop it there, you can be sure that I will address it either here or in the group, or maybe in a podcast. If it's a really complicated question, like the one I just answered, maybe I'll dedicate a whole podcast to it and we'll talk it through. Guys, thanks so much. I appreciate for you to jump in here, and if there's anything I can help you with, let me know how I can help you get it done. This is Coach Al with Defining Dad Bod. Until next time, guys, kick butt, take names.